I can't stress enough, Lois started out by saying that this program is intended for potential future judges, also for riders, for trainers, moms, dads, sons, daughters, cousins, aunts, uncles, anybody who wants to know, wants a better understanding of how scores are arrived at. And when people get through with this course, whether they simply audit the A, B, and C, whether they participate in the A, B, and C, or whether they go on and complete the part 2 of the program, they all come away with a greater appreciation and understanding of how the scores are arrived at when they then, as riders or as trainers, look at the comments and the scores on a test. They have a better understanding of how those scores are arrived at, and they also develop an appreciation of what it takes to be a judge. The B session concentrates on gaits, paces, and movements. And you say, well, we have already talked about gaits in the A session. That's true. And you're going to talk about gaits again in the C session as well. But each time it's with a slightly different perspective. In the A session, as Lois said, you discuss the biomechanics of the gaits. In the B session, we talk more about quality of gaits and as the quality of gaits as it pertains to the evaluation of each movement. You'll notice that in the directives, the quality of the gait is always the first thing in the directives. In the B session, we cover the criteria for the purpose of each level, of the gaits and paces, and especially of the movements and the figures. And so in each movement, the things that we discuss are the criteria of the movement, the directive ideas from the score sheet, the purpose or aim of each movement as outlined in the FEI handbook, and then some of the most common faults, and we discuss suitable vocabulary, both positive and negative vocabulary, so that we can formulate comments that are helpful to the rider. Then, as I mentioned, we discuss the purpose of each level, and I have only put up the purpose of second level here. The purpose of each level is printed at the top of each test, and we are judging whether the horse fulfills the purpose of the level when we judge each test. When we discuss the scores for each movement, we need to have a consistent methodology, and we go into quite some detail about the thought processes that we go through when we are arriving at a score for each movement. And in order for a judge to remain consistent through the day, one needs a consistent methodology. And so we have come up with a formula, which is basics plus criteria plus or minus the modifiers equals the final score, or B plus C plus or minus M equals S. The basics are considered in every movement. Then the criteria of the movement, and then factor in the modifiers. In order to be able to discuss the movements, we need to be aware of certain definitions. A movement is what is included in each box on the test sheet. Then we need to know what the essence is of the movement. And the essence is the most important part of each movement. Horses in collected trot at A, halt, rein back 3 to 4 steps, proceed, medium, walk. The essence of the movement is the rein back. So we need to know what is the most important part and to focus on that. We also teach future judges that they need to comment on the essence of the movement and try to find the most important thing in each movement to comment on, because if they do a running commentary, or 6 comments in every box, obviously there's not room for it, and wouldn't you as a judge rather have put down in that box what you consider is most important? And if you leave it up to the scribe may comment on a modifier and not on the essence of the movement. So the criteria refers to the requirements of the movement as defined in the USEF rulebook. All right, so now we'll look at some horses, and we will see some center lines. And it's important for us to look at the center lines from 2 vantage points. And you'll find this is one of the movements where there is the most divergence in scoring, because the judge at B sees it from a totally different perspective. From the side, you can't tell whether the horse is really truly on the center line. Horse is straight. However, you can see the quality of the trot better. You can see better whether the horse is square. And so we teach that one should leave some things up to the judge at C. Now we're looking at it not exactly from C, but close to C. So in other words, we're looking at it from the front. And now you see what you can see from that vantage point. You can see that the horse is wide behind, but you can't tell for sure how square it is. You don't see the quality of the trot as well, but you see the straightness better. And one more of. And we discuss what mark and what comment would go with that. Okay, now the loss of attention there was a modifier. The halt is the important thing, and the straightness on the center line. And then we go to some second level movements. Now remember, I said the essence of the movement was the rein back. And this horse says, I don't think so. And the willingness of the rein back and the clarity of the rhythm in the rein back is important. So we talk about all the different things that we like about the movement and all the things we'd like to see a little better, and come up with a score using the basics and the criteria and the modifiers. Now to the turns on the haunches, which are one of the movements that there's quite a bit of diversity on the scoring. And we discuss how large is permissible and how the horse returns to the track when he ends up a little bit off the track, which was incorrect in that instance. All right, and then we go on and have a few simple change examples. Could be more active. The up transition could have been slightly more direct, but the down was quite nice. And then we talk about how we would handle that. Would you ring the bell and call it an error? Or would you, and then what happens if you don't, then what happens if he trots through the next one? It did not fulfill the criteria. And I think with some of these movements that are tricky movements in the second level, movements that are controversial type movements, that I often say that when we have 30 participants in a group, we have 30 witnesses to an accident. And if you go around the room asking people what they saw. Everybody sees things a little bit differently. And so the beauty of it is that we can play it, and we can then replay it, and then we can replay it, and we can replay it until all 30 people agree on what's happened. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program.